Okay, guys, sorry, back after the fire alarm this morning. Let's just finish going through this paper, through the last question. Okay. As I was saying, before I was rudely interrupted, this is a very common question. You need to be able to remember the names of enzymes. Okay, now most of the enzymes, okay, end in amylase, ASE. Okay, substrates or products will end in OSE. Okay, so that's how you can determine the difference. Okay, now the next question, okay, was based on the digestive system. So this is the digestion question. Okay, now it's been a long time since you've done digestion because we did this in the end of year 9. Okay, however, now you still need to remember it, okay? You are assessed on everything in your summer exams. You are assessed on everything that you have learned over the duration of the course. And I know this was the first unit we did, but you still need to remember it as clearly as the last unit we did, essentially, okay? Again, my top tip when you've got a diagram, label, okay, the bits. You might not know some of it, but as long as you label what you definitely do know, you will know that this is the stomach, and you should know that C is the liver. Okay, now, the second question was explaining how food passes down the esophagus. Now, most of you could not remember what peristalsis was. Okay, you couldn't remember that key word. Okay, so that meant that you could not get full marks for this question. You needed to know that peristalsis is how food moves through the digestive system due to muscle contractions. Okay, so the muscle contractions is 1 mark, and the actual word peristalsis is what is needed for the second mark. Okay, remember that. That comes up quite often, especially if you're looking at why you need fiber in your diet. So you need fiber so that peristalsis can actually work, because for your muscles to be able to contract and move food through, they need something to push against. And if you haven't got enough fiber in your diet, you haven't got enough of that. Okay, which is why it leads to then constipation. So, recall again, most of you here for this question, which structure produces bile, you couldn't tell me which one was the liver, but you wrote next to it, it's the liver, I just don't know where it is. They won't give you the mark for that in the exam because you have to actually answer it on here. You have to highlight because these ones are self-marked, okay? However, for me, I did give you the mark there. If you did say it is the liver, I just don't know where the liver is, okay? Now, the role of bile, you needed 3 points here. Now, all of you could tell me, okay, that it breaks down lipids, okay, or breaks lipids into smaller droplets, but you can tell me why. Okay, you can't just say breaks down lipids or breaks down food. You have to say lipids, okay? And rather than saying break down, say emulsify, okay? Because emulsify means to break it down into smaller droplets. So you're saving yourself words there, okay? Emulsifies lipids to increase the surface area so enzymes can work, okay? So if I've got more small droplets, okay, compared to one big one, all right, then I have got faster digestion because I can have an enzyme working on this small one, this small one, this small one, this small one, rather than that one big one, okay? So it also neutralizes the stomach acid, all right, for the optimum pH for enzymes. Now, some of you said it increases the pH, which I accepted, okay, increases the pH in the intestines. Some of you said it increases the pH in the stomach, which is not correct, okay, so it doesn't work in the stomach, it works in the small intestine, okay? And some of you said decreases the pH, which is incorrect because that makes it more acidic. Okay, so just be careful there. If you're saying neutralizing, you're not then getting confused with increasing or decreasing the pH. Okay. Now, this question, most common mistake on this one was that you guys stopped reading the question. So the question says, calculate the mean rate of pH change per minute. Now, most of you saw mean and calculated a mean. You stopped reading, okay, essentially, which means that you just calculated a mean of these numbers, which doesn't make any sense, okay, and you don't get any mark for that. It's the mean rate of change per minute. Now, what you have to do is calculate the rate of change, so the change in pH. So from the start, it was 8. At the end, it was 5.8. Okay, so if I calculate the difference there, I get 2.2. Okay, if I take 5.8 from 8, I get 2.2. All right, per minute, this is over 20 minutes. So then what I have to do for my next step of the calculation is divide that by 20, and the answer is 0.11. Okay, not, I think most of you said that the answer was 4 point something because you just calculated the mean. Okay, now explain the difference. So why do I see this difference? Okay, without inhibitor. Okay, so without inhibitor, you need to tell me what the difference is. It says the difference. So you need to tell me what the difference is that you can see. So without the inhibitor, pH falls faster or it becomes more acidic. Okay, is your 1 marking point. And then you have to tell me why. Because this is a question looking at lipase inhibitor. Lipase breaks down lipids into fatty acids and glycerol. I know that. I can look that up from my table at the start of this question. Lipids, lipase, fatty acids, glycerol. So if you've got that correct, I know that I'm getting fatty acids. Fatty acids are an acid. If I have more acid, my pH decreases. Okay, so essentially that's where you're making the link there. Okay, so because I am breaking down more lipase into fatty acids, okay, that is why my pH falls. Now, you don't even need to mention glycerol. I've just mentioned it because it is a product of the digestion of lipids. Okay, but here the actual one that they're looking for is acids, the fatty acids, because we're talking about the pH. Glycerol makes no difference on the pH because it is not acidic. Okay, so then we've got the Corms question. Okay, now this was quite well answered. Okay, remember to plan these out. I've done a little plan down here. Okay, and remember that this is based on the context, okay, of the question that you're given. So it says some scientists have investigated the effect of vinegar on the digestion of starch. Now we've done a practical like this. Okay, I've recorded a practical like this on the effect of pH on the digestion of starch. Okay, using iodine and using amylase. Okay, essentially you are just telling me what happens in this practical, which is where some of you kind of lost marks because you weren't sure how you were actually measuring the rate of digestion of starch. Some of you said to look at the change in mass because you were thinking about the fact that starch is in flour, because we'd done a Corms question where we were looking at the effect of starch on bread. Okay, so you're thinking, oh, okay, starch is going to be in my flour, okay, and made that connection there, and you don't actually get any marks for that there, unfortunately. So here, you could all tell me what you were changing, you could all tell me that you were using starch, and you could all tell me to repeat it. It was where some of you lost marks was because you weren't talking about how to measure it accurately. And essentially, if I am measuring the rate of digestion of starch, I'm going to have starch. I'm going to have to add enzymes to that, amylase, okay? And I'm going to have to measure how long it takes for the amylase to break down starch. Now, the test for starch is the iodine test. So an iodine will go blue-black in the presence of starch, and it will be orangey brown when there is no starch left. Okay, so that's what you needed for the measure marks here, and you're measuring how long that process takes. So you're measuring how long it takes the iodine to stay brown orange. Okay, now this practical is on your OneNote as one of the revision practicals, because that is a core practical, a required practical for paper 2. Okay, so this has come up as a Corms question out in a different context on a paper 1, but technically that practical is a paper 2. So make sure you're remembering your practicals as well. Okay, all right. And that's the only way that some of you lost marks there. Okay, it was a very well answered question. Well done, guys. All of that Corms question practice is paying off. Okay, right. Sorry this had to be in 2 parts because of the impromptu fire alarm, but hopefully that makes sense.